Another reason why I left religion, church, Christianity, and fundamentalism is that church supports no queer history in school. Now, let me clarify, because I get a lot of negative comments about it's not every church or some denominations are so inclusive. As stated in the playlist and in multiple videos, these are the experiences I've had in 7 churches, 4 denominations, or people I have met. They've told me some of this information. It doesn't happen in every church, but it is consistent. I grew up in fundamentalism, the extreme version of Southern Baptists, and it's very true. Church teaches people who leave the church and go to donate money, legislate, lobby, so it can be illegal in states, counties, to not teach critical race theory, queer history, feminism, anything that isn't white supremacy, hetero privilege. And I'm glad that some denominations are moving away from getting members to advocate in the community about religious themes. But many individuals in church and outside of church oppose the inclusion of LGBTQ plus history in schools, often citing various reasons. Number 1, religious and moral objections. This is not a surprise. Some religious groups hold beliefs that consider same-sex relationships or gender transitions to be contrary to their faith or traditional values. They may view the inclusion of LGBTQ plus history in curriculum as promoting lifestyles or beliefs they disagree with, or even as denying their religious definitions of sin and identity. So what's wrong with this? When Christians and conservatives believe that teaching something is the same thing as condoning it, that would be like teaching kids about colonialism is somehow saying it's okay. Or teaching about the Holocaust is saying that we agree with the Holocaust. See, this is the problem with people. They don't think about what they're saying when they protest. Teaching something can be agreeing with it, or, and this is most likely what educators are doing, they're engaging and teaching, because if you don't learn from history, you repeat it. So the opinion or stance that if you teach something, you agree with it, my response is, does teaching about Nazism and communism mean you approve? I would say, for the most part, most people would say definitely not. Now, if you're at a neo-Nazi or a white supremacy meeting, that might be a different response, which is terrifying because neo-Nazi and white supremacy are the 2 most populous hate crime groups. And white supremacy is what gifts the world the most mass shooters. Number 2, parental rights and control over education. Some parents and religious groups believe that teaching about LGBTQ plus issues is a responsibility that should primarily rest with families, not schools. They may argue for parental rights to opt their children out of curriculum that conflicts with their beliefs, a position that has recently received support in a Supreme Court decision regarding religious objections to LGBTQ plus inclusive materials in elementary schools. See, the problem with removing your kid from class because you don't agree with something is teaching your child that you can avoid things that make you uncomfortable. I'd like for a student to try that in college. Imagine telling your professor, oh, I can't give a paper on how some Jewish people in Gaza are bombing people because I'm a Zionist. It wouldn't work. I mean, you would be sent to see the dean faster than you could write the paper. In higher education, you don't get to opt out just because you don't agree with a book or don't agree with an essay that you have to read. The problem with removing your kid from something you don't agree with is because you're shutting down open communication between children, educators, and adults. The realities of the world is you're going to be learning, especially when you're young, a lot of things that goes against your morals. Imagine teaching history without teaching about uncomfortable, immoral, or objectable events. We wouldn't be learning most of history because history is usually about colonialization, war, famine, exhibitionism. There's a lot of world history that is extremely uncomfortable to learn about, but you have to learn about it. And the issue is, when everyone has different beliefs, and the stereotype of certain groups being intolerant of other opinions and deeming them as satanic, it's the us versus them mentality. If I had children, and I don't currently, I would want my children to be exposed to everything that is legal and factual. If something is not factual, I don't want my kids to learn about it unless we're learning about people who are putting out incorrect facts on purpose. And a lot of pastors use unfactual sources or only use factual sources when it agrees with them. I want kids to learn everything so they are a well-rounded, educated individual. If people don't learn about bigotry, racism, queerphobia, or any history of these minorities, a lot of history is going to be lost. I grew up with Florida white supremacy curriculum. It lightly touched on colonialism, and it always portrayed Native Americans as a negative stereotype. The only exception was Squanto and the Indians at Thanksgiving. But even then, the paintings are not flattering to Native Americans. When you grow up in a culture that controls how you interpret history, controls what history you have access to, or rewrites history to maintain white privilege, heterosexual privilege, or just comfort over truth, this is when you get white supremacy curriculum. When the only time you see racially centered information is when a white person wears a kimono or when a Native American wears a headdress, you've got some racism problems. The only time people should be wearing traditional headdresses is during a celebration or a historic reenactment. I grew up never seeing an Asian person wearing normal clothing. They always were wearing a kimono. French people had the beret. Scottish people, they always were carrying the bagpipes. That's not how most people in Scotland dress. Now, if you're doing a historical lesson about traditional dress and the traditions of history, that's fine. But when a modern-looking Asian person on a poster is wearing a kimono, it kind of sends the message that all Asians wear kimonos. I never saw an Asian person wearing a suit or shorts. I mean, you watch a K-drama or a CL drama, They wear suits. They wear baggy pants. They wear all kinds of interesting clothing that we wear in America. But you never see them on a Christian event poster doing anything but a kimono. And they always look stereotypically Asian. They never show an Asian that's not 100% Asian. A lot of people are a mix. On my paternal and maternal side, I have at least 7 different nationalities. They're all European white nationalities, but they're different. French, Scottish, Irish, English, Italian, all kinds of interesting European countries. The whole problem with keeping kids from learning the truth is because people don't want to take accountability for how they're continuing racism. When you hide racism, where you erase racism, you outright lie to your kids about racism and the extreme effects racism has. This is how racism survives. So when parents don't want their kids to learn about any form of LGBTQ plus non-heterosexual orientations, gender identities, lifestyles, marriages, you're creating an environment where one is wrong, the other is right. And as long as everyone is following the law and everyone cares about each other, one family is not more important than the other. The problem with not teaching queer history is that the next generation of LGBTQ members, allies,